Fresh details have emerged in the questioning of former NSE Chief Chitra Ramakrishna. Sources tell Times Network that the probe agency is questioning Chitra over the suspected abuse of power and leaking of classified information. Those are the latest details coming in at this point in time. This is ex-NSE CEO Chitra Ramakrishna, who's on CBI's radar now. Remember, there were IT raids that were done against her as well. And prior to that, a SEBI order by the market regulator SEBI, which highlighted how she misused power, shared confidential information with a mysterious yogi in the Himalayas, among several other lapses in corporate governance also that have been discovered. So those are some details here coming in at this point in time with regard to this entire case as far as Chitra Ramakrishna is concerned. So this is really the line of CBI questioning is what we're picking up from sources, leaking of classified information, allowing systems to be rigged as well. Bhavtosh is joining us for more details. He's been tracking this entire case very closely. Bhavtosh, first, if you can tell us the latest developments in the CBI questioning, the line of questioning, what more details are trickling in?
The questioning of Chitra Radhakrishna is still going on by the CBI officials. In fact, the CBI AC3 unit from Delhi's CBI headquarters reached Mumbai yesterday. They initially shared the information with the Income Tax Department, which carried out raids and searches at Chitra's place in Mumbai and also at Anand Subramaniam's residence in Chennai. And subsequently, the CBI today went at the residence of Chitra's Chembur residence and started questioning her. This has been confirmed to Mirror now by top sources in the CBI. CBI has said that they're still pursuing the old FIR that was registered in May 2018. Now, based on the fresh leads that they have got, that's the reason why they have again started questioning her. Now, in 2018, CBI had registered an FIR against Sanjay Gupta and his company. Sanjay Gupta was accused of taking a first mover advantage on the basis of conniving with some officials of National Stock Exchange and placing his computer very close to the server of National Stock Exchange. It was called co-location mover advantage, and then subsequently making windfall gains. Now, it was said that Sanjay Gupta was not working alone, but there were many other individuals. Now, till 2014, it was said that if you place your computers very close to the main server, then because the information was disseminated through tick-by-tick technology, then you will also make a lot of profit because the information used to come through that process. Now, not only the CBI FIR named Sanjay Gupta, but also unnamed officials of National Stock Exchange and SEBI. But this is the first time that the former CEO of National Stock Exchange, Chitra Ramakrishna, is being questioned by the CBI.
All right, Bhavtosh, thank you so much for joining us and putting all of that into perspective. Those are the important details here coming out as far as this entire case is concerned. But let's bring in some more perspective into how big this really is. Hemendra Hazari is joining me here on the broadcast. Thank you very much, Hemendra, for joining us. I don't even want to start and get into how could this have happened and all the people who were involved in terms of who were part of NSE, part of the board, the stakeholders and shareholders, and in spite of that all this happened, because that's really a question that's baffling at this point in time. But my first question to you is, how deep do you think this goes at this point in time? These are just initial details which are trickling out, but obviously it goes much deeper than this.
It is very apparent that it has to go deeper than this, because Mr. Anand Subramaniam was appointed, I think, on the same day as Chitra Ramakrishna took charge. And therefore, it has been going on for some years now. And I think the investigation has to show what all types of information did Chitra share with an outsider. Because we know from the SEBI order that she has, shared 5 years future data of the NSE. So we do not know what else is shared. I mean, what kind of data, confidential data to the exchange also has been shared. If that is the case, it is an extremely serious offense, which has to be criminally investigated and criminally prosecuted.
Hemendra, on a larger perspective, we've seen number of scams that have broken out over the years. Some of the biggest ones of late has been the ILFS scam, and then, of course, several banking scams as well. And every time there is this whole question about how did this fall through the cracks. But when you see this kind of, the country's largest stock exchange falling through the cracks is not even what begins to describe it. What does it really tell us about the state of corporate governance, the way entire companies and institutions are structured?
I have written extensively on corporate governance in the private sector and all the blue chips. And the reason why the NSE is today an institution of ridicule is that the public interest directors, the shareholders directors did not do their job. If they had asked the necessary questions at the time of his appointment, at the time Mr. Anand Subramaniam's name figured in the NSE annual reports, this could have been nipped in the bud at a very early stage. But what we have seen time and time again in all these cases, Yes Bank, ILFS, in all these scams, is that the public interest directors and the independent directors, they collude with the executive management of the companies they are on. And instead of protecting their, the public's interest, or even in this case, the LIC and State Bank of India's interest, they have totally surrendered themselves to this kind of executive. Mind you, the suppression of board minutes, not holding any of these probing questions, these are very serious. That means they were part of the cover-up that was going on. And in many cases, the cover-up is worse than the original crime. So that is why I think all these public interest directors, and mind you, these are the luminaries in the corporate world, they must be evicted immediately from any other firms where there is, where they sit as independent directors. They have lost all credibility today.
Yes, and that brings us to, the other important, outcome or repercussion that we see of all this when it comes to independent directors, when it comes to large shareholders, as far as these kind of institutions are concerned. Obviously, they're not being held accountable enough. I mean, if they are part of this kind of a cover-up, as you're saying, this entire investigation, it's not enough that only the top, the people who are at the front of this whole scam are penalized. It has to go much deeper, and that investigation has to be carried out in that manner.
No, most definitely. And as I said, you see, everybody, even SEBI has to do his job properly. Why have they waited? They've been sitting on this report for 5 years. They could have asked the Central Bureau of Investigation. They could have asked the Enforcement Directorate to find out who the email ID is. They could have, find out what more information has gone out from this Ramakrishna, Chitra Ramakrishna. See, none of this seems to have done. They've just done a very tertiary, investigation and come up with these conclusions. They could have done a lot more, in 5 years that they've been sitting on it.
Yes. Hemendra, the other, question which sort of really comes to one's mind as an outsider is a lot of these decisions are supposed to be taken by a board, by several people signing off when it comes to high-level appointments, high-level salary increases, among several other things. And while you say that there could be some people who were in collusion with all of this, there must have been at least one person who, thought that this is a red flag, one person to have spoken out, perhaps would have set this whole thing in motion and brought things to light earlier, but that didn't happen.
Obviously, it didn't happen because that's the way corporate India works, unfortunately. Anyone who had objected then, any public interest director who had objected then, would have been evicted from all boards because everybody wants a yes man or a yes woman on the board.
Yes.
You see, if this had been detected early, this would have been realized at a very early stage. But in every case that I see, there is no dissenting really on the board. And that is the sad tragedy in corporate governance today, that we build these elaborate structures. But the basic independence of independent directors and public interest directors is just not there. I mean, you have people like, Mohandas Pai, who was very visible in the media and perhaps even on your shows.
Yes.
You have, people who've been there for 3 years, Abhay Havaldar, Prakash Parthasarthi, Anshula Kant, mind you, she was there at the board meeting, which was suppressed. The whole minutes were suppressed.
Yes.
And she's become now the MD and CFO of the World Bank. So what we've seen is that all this, by colluding with them, actually you're getting promoted and you're getting even higher positions in the corporate world. So you actually get rewarded for colluding with the executive management of such companies.
So what do you think needs to change fundamentally in how boards are structured, in how independent directors are not just appointed, but even held accountable when, things go wrong?
In my opinion, you have adequate structures in place today. I think the way to, rectify this situation is to criminally prosecute some of these independent directors, some of these prominent independent directors, mind you, because that will set a lesson to all the independent directors today who sit on corporate boards, because they will know that the punishment is severe if they do not do their jobs. Today, they are just not scared enough. And that is why they feel that they can constantly say if anything goes wrong that I didn't know. They deliberately don't want to know, or they look away. That is very, very clear from this SEBI order, that they are not asking very basic questions which any ordinary person with ordinary and average intelligence should have asked. And therefore, they have to be punished severely. Once that, everyone sees the kind of punishment that some of these individuals are given, they'll also, fall in line. But unfortunately, we don't do that.
And Hemendra, one final question. Now that, of course, still we'll wait for more details to emerge in all of this. But from what we know, what do you think are the kind of ramifications we're going to see in terms of, what's come out so far? Do you think it's going to have a ramification in terms of, fundamental changes to certain things? Or is it just going to be another scam that will be forgotten as the years go by?
This will follow like all other scams. At most for 1 month, you'll have it in the media, then slowly it will be done. And everyone will do their setting. That's the way the things work out in India. And then everything again will quieten down. But unless you take very severe punishment, nothing is going to change. I'm very clear about that.
Well, that is the unfortunate reality. Hemendra, thank you so much for joining us with your perspective on this entire case. We'll, of course, continue to track all of the developments here. But for now, slipping into a very quick break, we'll be back with lots more.